Welcome back to Brashonomics. We were talking about dogs, and a lot of people maybe think their dog gets screwed by not getting outside enough, and we'll cover a little bit more of that. Paul Grucza joins us, Director of Education and Client Satisfaction with the CWD Group Incorporated, who's also a frequent lecturer and consultant on apartment and association management. How are you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, you said you got 2 dogs.
2 dogs.
And they get walked?
They get walked 4 times a day.
No kids with iPads.
No kids with iPads.
Wait, 4 times a day?
4 times a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why you're so fit.
See? Figure that one out.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Paul, speaking of dogs and condos kind of seem to go hand in hand or sometimes not.
Sometimes not.
Yeah.
The condo phenomenon is an interesting phenomenon where you bring people together and, by way of intro, 1 in 4 people in this country now live in some form of association, whether it's a condo or an HOA. And your earlier guest talked about educating their buyers and purchasers, and we take a tack and try and educate the realtors so they know the product that they're selling. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people in particular who buy condos don't realize either A, they don't read, B, they don't understand, or B, they don't want to understand. They can't have dogs. So dogs and condos are a love-hate relationship.
Sure. Now, if you're on the top floor, they probably get walked even less.
Oh, my God, yeah.
Assuming that they are allowed.
Or they take care of what they need to in the elevator on the way down, hoping to get walked.
Sure.
So, yeah, there's an issue with that, too.
I know now they have the pieces of grass that you can just put out on your back porch, so you don't have to take the dogs walking anymore, and then somebody comes and picks up the grass for you.
Many of the condos that we represent in the Seattle area have little turf areas, AstroTurf areas, spread out throughout the building. And they bring their dogs out there, and it's AstroTurf, but hey, it works.
Hey, it works. It works.
Better than an elevator.
Paul, so people are get into condos oftentimes. The pet piece is one, if they're allowed or not allowed. Are there other pieces of the puzzle that maybe people don't understand that they're getting themselves into when it comes to a condo?
There are multiple pieces they don't understand when they get into a condo, and that's why we take our work so seriously, trying to help them understand before they get in. A lot of times they are downsizing, and they're coming from their own home, and they're coming into a shared environment where you've got maybe 50, 100, 200, 300 people who are sharing common areas, amenities, elevators, parking garages, and so on. And
AstroTurf pads.
AstroTurf pads. And the reality is some people don't know, A, how to share, B, they don't realize that when they give up some of the things they had in their home, they've got to do things in a different way when they move into a condo. Mm-hmm. And that's where guidelines, rules, regulations, and people don't like rules and regulations come into play. So some of our challenge from the management side when we're educating, once they get in, they really are given kind of a book of instructions on how to enjoy life in a condo. Mm-hmm. And some embrace that quite well. Others, not so much.
What are some of the big differences?
Well, we can start with the dogs. Many condos do allow pets. Many are non-pet buildings. And if they do allow pets, dogs in particular, there's size limitations, size requirements, registering the dog, that they're chipped, that how they're carried out of the building, how they're taken care of at the building. Beyond the dogs, parking is an issue. You're assigned a parking space. Well, I don't like that space. Well, that's the space that comes with that unit. What people do with trash, recycling, their things that they have to compost and so forth. The realities of noise limitations and renting. And there are so many different things that come into play when one comes to purchase a condo that you need to be an informed consumer because the time to ask the questions is not after the keys are given and the moving truck's pulling up to the building.
Right. And so when people buy a condo, they get this pretty big stack of papers called...
Well, they have governing documents and CC&Rs and rules and regulations that they should be looking at prior to signing a contract for purchase. And we work hard with our buildings in particular to make sure those documents are available. Once they get them and they review, they have an opportunity to back out of a deal if they so choose, 72-hour right of rescission. But the reality is they need to read that before they decide because their life will change when they come into that building.
Paul, a lot of people probably don't read these amount of rules because I've seen them before. I've had a condo. It could be 2 inches thick of legal documentation, which is not exactly, it's kind of put you to sleep reading sometimes.
Oh, it's
not for you. I'm sure
me.
you enjoy every moment of it.
Every moment of it.
But for your average person who's excited about a condo, now you're reading 100 pages of legalese, it can be tough to decipher, tough to appropriately investigate.
There is no question that the meat of those documents is difficult, A, to understand, B, to ingest, and C, to really read in one sitting. And that's why it's so important from our end. We work with a lot of realtor groups to help them understand what those governing documents are about so they can, in a summarized format, tell their potential purchaser or seller as well about the impact of those documents. We do a lot of training with people who move into our buildings. We do lots of orientations so that they can better understand those documents, because you're right, there's an awful lot of them. But if they're a diligent consumer and the product is on the market, and keeping in mind 1 in 4 in this country are in some form of association, they need to learn and they've got to read before they buy.
And, to think that people would spend $500,000
or
up
more,
or down, up to millions and millions of dollars. You go to New York, you're spending $50 million on a penthouse. But, you'd think you would take more time in reading those. Do you feel like a lot of people don't take the time to read them beforehand and end up maybe with a little buyer's remorse once they realize what they've purchased?
They don't take enough time.
Okay.
They may take the time, but they don't take enough time. And I have seen over and over again where there is remorse after they've purchased. And that remorse, all we can do at that point is work to educate them on getting rid of some of that remorse and helping them assimilate into a new lifestyle, because that's what they're buying. They're not buying a home. They're buying a lifestyle.
And it's time to give away Spot the dog.
Yeah, give away Spot the dog.
Is there anything that can make this process, easier? Because as you said, it's you're getting a lot of paperwork. You've gone through the process of finding a house. You've gone through the process of making offers. A lot of people kind of think that's the finish line, or at least they have to get their loan done. Is there a process by which you can make this easier or lower stress?
Oh, there absolutely is. And your earlier guest talked about using Zillow as a resource, checking out realtors and how many listings they've had and how much they've sold over $1 million and so on. Well, the same reality holds true with technology for the associations today, because 98% of them across this country have some form of website. And on that website, the governing documents, the rules and regulations, those things that impact livability in that association are available for review publicly, so they can take a look at what it is they'll get into before they even determine, do I want to take this step and live this type of lifestyle? So that is a huge, huge, huge resource.
In the same way that you would walk the hallways, or you'd walk the neighborhood, or understand, the traffic patterns or whatnot, you would probably want to read this document. But I don't know if a lot of people get those documents before they make an offer. It seems to happen after.
We get lots of calls from people who are looking to buy, and they have a realtor that they're working with already, and we will direct them to a website. We encourage them to take a look at the building before they even get to the paper stage, and take a look at the garage, take a look at the grounds, walk the hallways, realize this is where you're going to walk to
Check
your
out
home
parking
every day.
spot L49 at the very
right.
end in the corner.
See those little green spaces for the dog. Understand the feel of the building, because everyone has a different feel, and it might not fit. What works for you might not work for me. So we do what we can from our end to take away some of that remorse before it gets to the contractual point. And at that point, hey, it's too late.
Paul Grucza joins us, Director of Education and Client Satisfaction with the CWD Group. Paul, when people buy a condo, they don't maybe necessarily have the opportunity to meet all their neighbors beforehand. I have been on a condo association board, and it was one of the most painful things I have ever done, because you get people who have very, very strong opinions about the way a condominium should be run. And sometimes you're not of the same opinion. How would you recommend people deal with the association when you get these strong opinions?
Well, first of all, you need to come and take my board orientation course, and that would help you do your job a lot better. The reality there is, you bring a group of people together, you've got a variety of opinions, and the consensus has to be pretty much across the board the same for a board. Your baseline foundation has to be the governing documents for that association. And that's what a good board has to refer back to, because that's what they use to make their decisions, their judgments, and create what people will live by.
The laws of the land.
That's the law of the land. You can't pick a neighbor once you've bought that unit. You can kind of check them out beforehand. I have people that come and sit in on board meetings and see what things are about, the lay of the
Where
land.
do you live?
Yeah, what unit are you in?
Right.
It helps them make a bit more informed purchase decision. But you're right. You bring a group of people together. The reality is going to be not everybody's going to agree, and that's a tough job for a board.
But you said it perfectly, and it makes a lot of sense that you have to just go. You can take a lot of the opinion out of it if you just go back to the papers that everybody has already agreed to.
That's correct.
Which I imagine is why they are hundreds of pages long, because it takes the opinion and the personality out of the boardroom.
It sure does.
Paul, thanks so much for joining us again. That is Paul Grucza, Director of Education and Client Satisfaction with the CWD Group. When we come back, it's Monday. Ryan Leopold will join us. We'll get all the questions answered about mortgages in just a few minutes. We'll be right back.